Okay, so apparently my computer just decided to crash, but we are hopefully back up and running. So let's get cracking on the miniature. Now, actually, since I'm going to be painting the boots, yeah, no, I can get to them. I decided to not glue him onto the base. So I wanted to try something that I'm usually not very good at, and that is to not do a sort of fully assembled paint job on the mini that I'm painting. I will instead just go like that, and see, we have our brand new, let's see what's wet, starter brush, and I just need some small bit of paper towel to wipe it off. Always comes in handy. And now, only slightly delayed, we may actually be able to start. Now, before starting, just quickly say that again, this is a Zenithal highlight that I did when priming the model. As you can see, it's started by painting it all black, and then airbrushing, first a medium gray and then pure white all the way from the top, from rising angles. But for this one here, this little guy, we will giving him brown boots. And one of the reasons I chose this particular miniature, or at least maybe not him specifically, but one of the ones from the Underworld set, was that I think that's a place where many people might actually start miniature painting. If it's not board games or going all in on an Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40k army, then some of the smaller games that Games Workshop have been doing, smaller is a relative term here, the ones that don't require you to assemble and paint hundreds of miniatures. You can pick up Warhammer Underworlds at a fairly reasonable price, all things considered. I haven't played the game much, but I do like the quality of the miniatures. I've always been a bit of a sucker for the miniatures that Citadel, aka Games Workshop, are doing. They look great. I'm also drifting off camera again. But yeah, but basically one of the reasons I chose this is that I can see a lot of people who want to either try their hand at some of the smaller games from Games Workshop, or just getting into the miniature painting hobby, that they might actually start, instead of going full on Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40k, they might just go for something like Warhammer Underworlds. Could also be Blood Bowl or whatever. There are also other game companies that make equally great games where you don't need a lot of miniatures. But I mean, you can't really argue with the fact that Games Workshop is really, really large. They have a large chunk of the market, which also means that it's a lot easier for you to actually be able to try out these games. I mean, your local game shop might even host regular game nights. Obviously not during a pandemic, or at least they shouldn't if things are bad in your area. But after the pandemic, when things become a little bit more normal, you'll be able to go there, I don't know, Monday night, Tuesday night, whatever night they have their Warhammer 40k or whatever, Warhammer Underworld tournaments, Kill Team, all those different things. So you might be able to just go there, play with a bunch of miniatures that someone else has brought, and get an introduction to the game. That is a little bit more difficult with the more sort of niche games or smaller games like Malifaux, which I'm a huge fan of, as you already know, or Guild Ball, I think it's called, which is effectively a kind of fantasy football again. But with, instead of like Blood Bowl has a grid you're moving on, then I think in Guild Ball it's actually sort of free-form movement, so a bit like, you know, the war games. You can just move a number of inches or whatever, centimeters, whatever your measurement is, and then you just move freely around trying to get the ball into the other end and score some goals, or points, whatever, touchdowns. I don't know what it's called. I haven't tried it yet. Hey AJ, welcome. You missed all the drama, all the yeah, my computer kind of hung on me. This time it didn't crash, at least. I think I really need to get out of the habit of moving my gear around between my different computers, because every time I move, you know, my camera or microphone or whatever, things go wrong. Listen one bit. Yeah, I'm well, thanks. How are things over there in the great Canadian, whatever we call it today? Also, AJ, while you are listening and while you're not too far away, remember that if you want to be part of a lottery to get the starter paint set from Army Painter, just let me know in chat. I mean, you're already subscribed, so, or well, not subscribed, you already follow me here on Twitch. Thank you for that. So if you want to get a shot at being the lucky winner of a full starter paint set, just let me know. So 1.5 hours left of your workday. That is fantastic. I hope it's been a good day. I hope it hasn't been too taxing. Yeah, we'll figure out the shipping. I kind of have a feeling that it might actually be cheaper to just somehow get the stuff locally and have it shipped to you from some place in Canada. Oh, we have a prospector mining run. For those not in the know, that is a reference to the computer game called Star Citizen, where AJ and some of the other people from the Incorrigible Party are quite actively strip mining everything to get absolutely loaded and buy all the in-game ships they can. So yeah, you could have that running in the background. That's pretty cool. That's nice. Okay, so boots are mostly done. Well, so far, I mean, the paint is pretty much what I expect. A little thin in the consistency. Normally I would actually thin down my paint, but this one on this wet palette I haven't thinned it, and I think it's actually thin enough as it is. I mean, seeing as this is actually supposed to be a test of how we find, how we like the paint set, I figure I should make some notes as I go along. But yeah, the wet palette seems okay. Seems to be drawing paint up quite nice, water up quite nicely from the sponge below it. Yeah, we'll see. I think we'll also actually make his wristbands brown. Again, since this is a challenge to only use the paint set, the starter set, I'm actually going to be less sort of selective with the colors than I normally am. I usually try to avoid using the same color too much on a miniature. I use different shades of green or whatever. But instead of just going, oh, I only have these colors, I'm just gonna paint everything the same. I like to sort of mix it up, split it up a little bit. But yeah, with only 9 colors, 9 quite different colors available, I don't have that luxury at the moment, and I don't want to spend a lot of time doing a lot of mixing to finding, you know, the right type or right shade of brown, and, you know, get stuck on that. We've also given ourselves a kind of a limited time that we spend on it, and since I'm definitely not the fastest miniature painter around, I can't be bothered doing a lot of spending a lot of time mixing colors until I hit just the right nuance. So I'm just gonna go for it, and maybe make some variation through highlights, different, you know, shading, playing a little bit with that. I will also, unlike what I usually do, I will not be using my mediums, like thinner or matte medium, to thin down my paint. If I feel the need to be thinned down, I will only use water, because that is the deal with this challenge. Hey Bill, welcome. Have a look at this little dude we're painting today. One of the guys from the Warhammer Underworlds original starter set called Shadespire. It's one of Garrick's Reavers. I think it's called Arnulf or something like that. It's a suitably Vikingish name. So we are just slowly making progress, trying to make him look good. Yeah, he is fearsome. He's actually Garrick's Reavers is actually one of the Chaos warbands, or whatever they're called in Warhammer Underworlds. So he's not just any kind of berserker. He's actually, you know, quote unquote evil in the sense that Chaos is hellbent on destroying all living things in the Warhammer world. That's kind of that's what they do, and I even think they, to some degree, I think they're so chaotic that they don't even have a set goal. Many of them, they just do it. So yeah, straight out of a sportswear commercial. Just do it. Just destroy the world. I'm gonna get sued for that. So, boots down, wristbands down. Next up is his skin, and for that, since we've now moved on a little bit, I will plop him back down on his base. But again, I won't put him all the way down. I mean, I can easily drag him out, but I've just lifted him up just a little bit, mostly as a reminder to myself that he's not fully fixed. I should probably come with a small note about the miniature itself, because I kind of like some of the new sculpts from Citadel, in the sense that they are marketed as easy to assemble. And actually, they claim that you don't need glue to hold them together. That's just sort of click, all of it just clicks together, and I believe it does. I also believe I managed to mix up my flesh tone way too thin, which is not fun, but again, it's paints I'm not really that used to working with, so that was too thin. Now we know. And I you know, when thinning down paints, because that's a thing I never learned until actually quite recently, and still haven't really gotten good at. but I've seen so many people say that you should mix down your paint to a consistency of milk. And I don't know how milk is in the countries where these people are, including people here from Denmark, I might add. Because whenever I get to the consistency of milk, I basically end up with a shade or a wash. Because milk is not that thick, unless you go for whatever it's called in the high fat milk. I'm not sure what it's called in English. But I mean, this is not even as thin as milk. You can just see right through it, and worse, it actually sort of creeps into the recesses, which is not what I want my paint to do. I'm not trying to paint him with a wash, but anyway, we're going for it, trying to learn from the people who actually draw and fantastic miniatures, apparently with paint that's even thinner than this. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. So, in other news, I've added some more gear to my setup today. Actually arrived a few days ago, and it's not sort of the final equipment I'll be using. Maybe the whipping cream, yeah, that would be more like it. I mean, the paint should be fairly thin, so you don't get brush marks, brush strokes in the paint. But it's just whenever I thin paint with water or thinner or whatever, I get the washes that just seep all over. That being said, I mean, this is actually seems to be doing fairly well at the moment. There's a lot of see-through going on, but yeah, whatever. No, but some new gear I've got is a new lamp. In addition to the magnifying glass lamp that shines straight down on the miniature, I got one of the sort of small LED panels from Neewer, however it's pronounced. I've got some large ones coming in, hopefully this week, but I just also bought some USB ones that you can use for your teleconferencing through Zoom, Teams, whatever. So I use those on my regular computer to give better lighting, because I don't have a light in front of me when I'm sitting on my work computer or desktop at home. And I really hate when you're doing the video conferencing and people are sitting and they have the window behind them and you can't see their face basically. So I wanted to do my bit for better quality, both on work calls and when we're doing board games, role-playing games, all that stuff. And until I get my large panels, LED panels, I just figured I'd take in one of the small ones. So I have, see if you want to come in. There you can see it really isn't that big, but quite bright, and it has a really nice blue shine to it, or clear shine to it, so it actually makes the miniature pop quite nicely, and it has light coming in from the same angle as the camera is watching, so that should make it a lot easier for you to see what goes on. I mean, I have the light straight down. You should now also have the light from the side. So yeah. I've also today gotten some really good gear for my painting sessions, which is what I also use to prepare these paints, and that is a small, I think it's called a vortex shaker, to shake up all the paint. Like I'll always just shake it by hand and go shake your paints, blah blah blah, because you really do, because all the pigments will gather at the bottom of the paint pot, or whichever way gravity pulls it, and can be quite annoying, and actually also quite hard on your arms and wrists, especially, to keep shaking your paint for a few minutes to be able to actually use them. So I got a small tattoo ink shaker. I tried some nail polish shakers in the past, and they were not very good, and they were extremely noisy. So I got the tip to use one of the other ones, that kind of, instead of just shaking the bottle, actually sort of slightly rotates it a little bit, so you get kind of a twirly thing going on inside the bottle. That should help bring out the pigments from the bottom and get it all get the paint a lot more even. I'm not sure if that's actually what I'm experiencing here, because it actually is quite nice to paint with this at the moment. Still think it's oddly thin, but a couple of layers and we should be good. Now for his face, yeah, he's got a huge, I don't know if it's tattoo or scar, or maybe an inset jewelry or piece of metal or bone or whatever, you know, straight on his forehead. And I'm gonna do the details on that later on if I have time for it. For now, I'm just gonna splash his entire face flesh colored. And again, sorry about drifting off screen. Just when I sit here and focus on painting, I tend to drag the miniature towards me, because it gets a little bit better light. I can't really move my light out, because then it gets in the way of the camera, so you would only be able to see the lamp and not the miniature. Plus the camera then has a tendency to actually just focus on the lamp instead of the miniature, which is a little annoying, but there's more things to figure out when it comes to that. Okay, so just to show you the small Wonder machine for shaking paints, because this stream would be boring if I just sat here and painted without sidetrack myself. It's basically this kind of bulb thing. You have some really nice one here, and when you need to paint, you just take whichever color you need, you just press down, and then it's gonna make a little bit of noise, but it's also gonna it's also gonna shake around. It is a little bit noisy, but I did that with all the paints before this session here, and they are flowing quite nicely. Oh, thank you, Bill. The camera is my trusty Canon M200 that I'm actually really pleased with. It wasn't too expensive for what it is. Really nice. Yeah, but those ones they are sold on eBay and places like that as tattoo ink shakers or something like that, and I found them quite useful for this. Anyway, on to his pants. I haven't done a lot of thought on how to actually do his paint scheme, and since I only have a limited number of colors, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go pretty hard on the hey Miniatorium. Torsten, I think. Sorry, I can't remember. Thanks for joining. As you can see, I've gotten a little bit of a start on our project. Torben, Miniatorium is one of the other Danish streamers who's also doing this challenge with the Army Painter starter set. So I'm really interested in what he's doing. Partly because I just am interested, but also because he is far better at painting than I am. So let's just get a little bit of water into that. So 40k orcs. Well, I think you're gonna be happy with the green then that I'm playing around with here. Did I get it? There we go. I got the camera adjusted here. The green, the green is labeled green skin, so hardly surprising that it actually has kind of this sort of gritty, slightly, I don't know, grayish, if that's the right term, but sort of slightly dirty green. It's not a crisp green like you might see on a beautiful elven cloak or whatever. But it is quite nice here. And again, yeah. When you say old school 40k orcs, are we talking the old metal miniatures from way back in the day? Or is it just old school as in you never go wrong with orcs? Classic second edition boxed set. Oh, that is those are old. That's definitely old school. I look forward to seeing that. You're painting, you're painting tomorrow. I actually have a friend coming over to play Arkham Horror tomorrow evening, so I don't really know if I'll be able to join. I might just lurk to give you some views. I'll see. What time is it? Yeah, of course we're doing it for the fun of it. Hopefully we're all in it for the fun. I mean, sure, if someone can actually, make money off of it, like Tabletop Minions or Miniac or some of those people, that would be cool. So 8 p.m. tomorrow CET. Cool, thank you. I will try to keep it in mind. I should get a notification from Twitch, I guess, but I'll try to keep an eye on the clock, and at least pop by and say hello. So yeah. So again, just like I did with the brown, I haven't really thinned down the green here a lot. It is quite thin as it is, but as I also said, thinning paints is not really what I'm best at, because when I learned to paint back in the 90s, we just used it straight from the pot with the old Citadel paints. So I haven't really sort of gotten the knack for it. I don't have the feel for the right consistency yet. Cool. Thanks for the Simulurk, and I'll do a quick plug for your Norrøn. I think that's how you pronounce Norrøn game, which is, as far as I understand so far, a Viking miniature game designed by Danish people. And Norrøn is basically just a word that means in olden times or old ancient, basically stuff like that. I think it's really cool that you started doing that, designing a game system. Okay, so getting some green done on his pants. But again, no, trying to sort of do a running commentary on the paint and the brush and so on. I mean, so far it's actually quite nice. As I said in the beginning, I didn't plan on keeping the Army Painter, the starter set, because I've used Army Painter paints in the past, and I didn't like the fact that they sort of separate so much and so quickly, and it takes forever for me to shake them up, and you have to buy small glass or metal balls, at the agitators, to really get them going. But maybe the new sort of the Warp Vortex Shaker thing is just done good for it. So Minitorum writes, thanks man, yeah, I'm really digging into it. That's a Norrøn game, Viking miniatures game. I've been working on making game systems for a long time now, but this one has me and others excited, so I might actually get it done, you know. Oh, I know that. I mean, there's nothing worse than, you know, starting on a project and then realizing that your heart's not really into it. So yeah, you just don't get far. But hey, cool. I hope you get a lot of work done. Enjoy, and feel free to share whenever you have something. Cool. I am gonna go. Now I'm not gonna do a lot to get a color scheme here that makes sense. I'm just gonna play around, have fun. So I'm gonna make his, I say, jiggly bits. Not a loincloth, but sort of he's got some cloth hanging down, skirt-ish. I'm gonna make that red right next to his green pants. It's gonna look horrible and contrasty and everything, but hey, it'll all be toned down once we actually start shading things. For now, I just want to get the miniature painted. Actually a really nice tone of red they've got going here. It's also the color is called Pure Red. I mean, can't really disagree with them on that one. It's definitely red and it's very pure. So yeah, Pure Red. And here we go. Oh yeah, I shouldn't hum because I've got background music going. And the background music is, as always, Adrian von Ziegler, who is this very kind and awesome dude who makes a lot of music with really good sort of atmospheric feel to it, like, you know, background music. He's got different different albums with different sort of styles and themes and settings and all that. You can have some you can use for, you know, if you're playing role-playing games or whatever. Use it for the battle scenes. It'll be exciting and all that. And you'll have more. Some of his it's got some Celtic inspired music. They are called the Celtic Collection. It's not what we are listening to at the moment though. They're really good for just all-round relaxing background music. So yeah. But the really cool thing about him, well, the really cool thing is that he's a fantastic musician, but he's also really kind, so he allows people like me to just use his music for free when we're streaming. And that means that you have many albums, a lot of music, hours and hours of really cool music that you can just play for free. The details are on his YouTube channel. He just writes it usually in a comment on his video saying you can use any of my music, blah blah blah. Which is also why it was quite frustrating when I, a few weeks ago, got a copyright notification from when I uploaded the YouTube to uploaded the video to YouTube, which I do because Twitch doesn't store my streams for more than, I think it's 14 days. So I just export them to YouTube, and then someone slapped me with a copyright claim on one of the songs. And since it listed precisely when it is, I could actually find which song was playing. And of course I contested it because it seems like it came from one of the accounts that do this regularly simply to prevent people getting money from their streams and videos. Now that's not a big concern of mine, since I am not monetized. I don't get any money out of this. Don't plan to, don't want to, don't need to. So yeah, so it was kind of silly because it doesn't really change anything for me, but it's just a kind of a tactic apparently someone do or use to annoy other people, which I think is just completely stupid and silly. So instead of just ignoring it, which I could have, I actually decided to dispute it and found out precisely which song it was and made a note on that to YouTube. And then it just the process is that it goes back to whoever filed the claim, and then they have 30 days. And I think that is part of it, because even let's assume that I was actually making money off of this and trying to get a business going. Not being monetized for the first 30 days of a video coming out is actually quite horrendous. That's a lot of money you won't get. I don't know if you sort of get sort of a back pay later on if the copyright claim doesn't hold up. But even so, you'll still have to wait a long time before the money is settled, and you need to deal with it, and it's a huge hassle. So yeah, one of the very first video I did on stream, I played the Star Wars Squadrons game, as you remember, Bill Gladio. Yeah, Bill writes, "I'm so worried about using any music on stream because I've heard so many horror stories." And exactly, I mean, and I would have thought that a small YouTube channel with no monetization or anything like that would kind of go free, but I guess not. So anyway, I can also see I forgot his hands. That's just fantastic. Let's just paint them in. So yeah, so there is that, and it's just absolutely silly. And the worst part was that when I actually did the dispute, I had no chance whatsoever to say that they mentioned the wrong song, which they did, which I find incredibly interesting, because their claim is not only wrong in the sense that Adrian von Ziegler allows you to use his music for free. They also claimed it was another song, a different song from what it actually was, what was playing in the time period they made the claim for. But I had no option whatsoever of picking that. I could only choose that I had the right to play the song they mentioned, which I don't. I don't even know it. I couldn't even find the song they're mentioning, which I find even more interesting. So I also just tried to give some feedback to YouTube, saying that their dispute interface is actually missing some really important features. But I've obviously haven't heard anything from YouTube, because they are part of the big evil empire. But yeah, who cares? We'll see how it pans out. There's still a few weeks until it times out. So yeah, definitely. But anyway, actually, not because of this video, but for other reasons, I've actually now got up in the top left corner, I think it is. Should be a small window or frame showing exactly which song is playing. So I'm figuring if this happens again, it's going to be a lot easier for me to actually figure out what is playing. So this is it's gonna be fun. Yeah, I mean the small guy in this is just not gonna do anything. I don't know who is actually making these kind of false claims. What their end goal is. I mean they don't really get anything out of it other than just griefing other people. But then again, I'm an old League player. Griefing is, well, I've done my share of griefing in the past, but that was that was in game. That was not with people's actual money. So yeah, I don't know. That was a small story about the wonderful world of YouTube. Oh, hello, Tikpleo Star. I'm just gonna call you Star. Welcome to my stream. We are painting one of the miniatures from Warhammer Underworld, and we're doing it with the Army Painter Start paint set, and only that set, as a challenge that me and some of the other Danish miniature streamers have given ourselves this Christmas. So picked up the starter set, choose a mini, prime it, and paint the miniature with only the colors available in the starter set. So that's what we're doing. That's also why the color scheme is going to be a little wonky. To give you an idea, just do a brief intermission and I'll actually show you what we're dealing with here. This is basically the Army Painter War Games Hobby Starter paint set, along with the wet palette that I decided to pick up and test as well, again from the Army Painter. And yeah, so that's a challenge, and these are the colors available to us. And we're also only using the starter brush that comes with the paint set, but to be just a little bit reasonable, we also decided that we can use one other brush as well, because just having that single brush is going to be a little limiting. So yeah. So no, this is not for a job. This is just my hobby. Same with the other guys. I don't think any of them are living off of it. I'm actually a software developer by day and have just been painting miniatures for more than 25 years, so I think it's fun to do these challenges, to get, to try something, break out of your comfort zone a little bit, try some new paints, try some, something different. So, just need to mix up a little bit more paint, so I can give his skin a second layer. Now I have to say that I'm actually beginning to like the wet palette a lot. Seems to be cool. Oh, thanks for sticking around. Feel free to comment on anything, talk about whatever. This is as much about having fun and hearing what you guys have to say. If you want to tell us a little bit about where you're from, if you're painting yourself, if you have any projects and so on, just knock yourself out. Just be nice, be kind, basically just don't be an asshole. I'm just happy to have you here. Oh, you don't paint. Well, you could start painting. But gotta say, this dude is one muscular man thingy, Chaos Marauder, whatever he is. All right. Yeah, well, you do need some patience, and actually what I have had a lot of problems with over the years is not so much the patience itself, it's just the fact that I like everything to be perfect, preferably the first time around. So trying to paint really high quality miniature in the first go is never gonna be good. And also I just keep trying to go back and try to fix small mistakes, or painting a little bit outside of the area I intended to paint, and that is really not a good way to do it. You really just need to just accept your limitations. So just paint to the degree and the level that you can, and I seem to have accepted by now that I'm never gonna win any awards for anything, because I'm not painting to be super good at all the details. I'm basically painting, as some people like to say, I'm painting to fight the grey. And that is, of course, the hordes of grey plastic that's lurking in your board games and on your shelf of miniatures and all those things. So but as always with these things, especially when it's, you know, hobby things we do in our spare time, it is so important that you pick and choose your hobbies, what you want to spend your time on. Don't waste your life doing things you don't like doing. I mean, there's bound to be plenty of that for almost all of us, no matter where we end up. It's always going to be things we really don't like to do, but we have to do anyway, even if it's just, you know, balancing the checkbook or paying the bills, whatever. Those are things you can't really avoid if you want to have a decent living. But yeah, when you do have time to yourself, if you like to paint, paint. If you like to knit, knit. If you like to just take long walks in the forest, do so. Let me know when. I could use a little help getting rid of some corpses. Just kidding, of course. That's the second layer of flesh tone on him. It's actually beginning to cover quite nicely. When I was first painting the skin tone on him earlier in this stream, as you might recall, I was a little worried that it wasn't gonna fit well, because, you know, thinning the paint, it got really thin, but it actually is picking up quite nicely and covering as it should. I mean, you can still see the cenital highlight through the paint along his ribs, for instance, under his arms. Oh, missed a spot down there. But that's actually fine. I mean, that's why you give it a cenital, to emphasize the shades in the miniature. You also sometimes just give it a cenital to make it a lot easier to actually see what's what on the miniature. You get a far better feel for the lines of the miniature when you're doing it. So, okay, well, enough of that. So we have some and basically, since I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here, because since we only have one shade, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to paint the entire miniature, just base coat it in the primary colors, and then after that I'm going to just slap on strong tone all over the miniature, and then I'm going to use highlights to fix it up so they get slightly different colors, mainly just to see how it goes, because it's kind of also an attempt to see if you can just paint a little faster. So we need some more colors on him. I mean, I really want to use the blue as well. I did say it was going to be a wonky paint job, and I can't really figure out for the life of me if it's going to be too wonky if I make this belt blue. But you know what? There's only one way to find out. So, what else is new from the world? I could go on one of my usual rants about role-playing games, so that's probably gonna be what we'll stick to tonight. Mainly because last night we had a really good experience in one of my groups that I'm in. RPG rants, yeah, I knew that would get your attention. But actually, Bill, the 3.5 group I was in, we recently switched to 5th edition, partly because the guy who really wanted to play 3.5, this is Dungeons and Dragons we're talking about again, he actually moved to the other end of the country. And while Denmark isn't really far, the other end of the country is still 4 hours away or so. It's not even all the way to the other end, but he moved too far away. And we tried having him on video, but it just didn't really work for the style we're playing, which is very freeform, and there's a lot of sort of inter-party role-playing. Making food. Tell us what you're making. So he moved away, and then I decided to bring in a new player that I'd just been introducing to 5e earlier this year. And the group we had started, me and the new player, that's kind of on hiatus, whatever, on break, while the last remaining player is studying for her exam, which is in March, I think. So I had a role player who couldn't play because the group was on break, but she actually got a really good start, and she's got a good sort of good head for role-playing games. So I figured, why not just invite her to the other group? But instead of taking a brand new player who had just begun to get, get a grip on 5e, instead of trying to bring her into 3.5, I figured it would be a lot easier to take a group of experienced players who didn't care, weren't thinking, having personal connections to 3.5, and just go upgrade them to 5e. So we've done that over the past few weeks, sorting out how to convert the characters from one system to the other and all that. And then we have the first actual game session yesterday, and it was a blast. And everyone agreed that it went well, and people were happy, and no one got injured or hurt, well, it may not be entirely true, at least in the game. But in the real world, it was a hoot and a blast. So that is definitely going to happen again. And it also goes to show, this is one of my pet peeves, it doesn't really matter what game system you're using. You can always have fun playing role-playing games if you're with the right group. And the right group is not about a specific type of or style of play. It's not that you have to be, in character role-playing all the time. I know I don't. It's also not that you don't. It's also not that you have to make your characters in, a right way or a wrong way. I've seen so many videos about it that it's unfortunately it is a thing in the D&D world that some people will insist that you're making your character wrong if you don't over-optimize them. If you forgo a plus to your hit roll as a fighter because you feel it is a lot more interesting that your fighter actually knows how to do, I don't know, Chinese pastry or whatever. I don't know if that's a thing, but now it is. Why is it more important to have high stats than to have a character that you want to play? But sometimes what you want to play is a super optimized character. And then again, it's about adjusting the expectations of the group. So if your group is really dungeon crawly, old school style, running down the corridors, beating up all the monsters, then definitely, go for the optimized characters. Get those bonuses, get that extra damage, get that extra advantage on all your rolls. If you're going for a city adventure with a lot of intrigue and a lot of it being, role played out among the characters themselves, and with the DM taking on the roles of politicians and courtiers or whatever, what have you, all those things. Well, then your huge brute of a fighter with a bazillion pluses is probably not gonna cut it. Gonna need something else. Maybe you need skills on your character sheet. Maybe you just need to play the game slightly differently. I don't know. choosing not to have fully optimal stats is totally fine, exactly if it suits your playstyle. I mean, if you're old school D&D, if you're running it, players versus game masters, and the game master, DM, whatever. I use game master and dungeon master interchangeably. I come from a long line of groups that were not in D&D, so that was not called dungeon masters, that was just called game master. So that's why I sometimes revert to it. But now that I am playing D&D, I try to actually call it dungeon master. But anyway, if you're playing, the style where the players are opposed to the dungeon master, then it makes sense, because then the dungeon master is gonna look and say, okay, so the level of this party is whatever, 3, 4, 200, who cares? It's this much. Then I should be able to throw these monsters at them, because there's a whole thing with the challenge ratings on the monsters and what so there's kind of balanced out to fit a certain level of characters, and you can, even if you don't have the same level on the characters, you can still kind of sort of calculate it. At some point, the level, if there's too big a difference in levels, it's definitely gonna impact the fun of everyone, both the high and low level characters. But to a certain degree, you can sort of balance it out, and I don't know if it really works or not. I have not played it in with that kind of D&D for a really long time, not since AD&D 2nd edition. So yeah, for that I would look elsewhere. But you can do that, and if you're having that kind of campaign, then it makes sense to make your characters combat oriented, because that's what you're likely to run up against. You also of course have some skills like intimidation, persuasion, deception, so on, that can be used in city adventures, or you have sneak, stealth, stuff like that. So while sneak and stealth, let's say you're breaking in, let's do a proper heist, the Score, Ocean's 11, what have you, that kind of thing, James Bondish, sneak in, steal some stuff. Sure, I mean, stealth and all those things are going to be really good to have. And while they may not be specifically sort of combat situations, I still consider it combat situations in the sense that it is opposed roles between you and some NPCs, if that makes sense. I mean, maybe it's not an attack roll, it's just a stealth roll to see if you can sneak past the guard, but still the same kind of me against you situation. And then you need to optimize it, at least to some degree, especially if it really is one of these ones where the alarm system triggers if you don't do a stealth roll of at least 17. Well, then you better get those bonuses, because otherwise you're gonna get caught. I mainly prefer the different style of playing where we just wing it as a DM. I don't really like to have the outcome of an entire adventure and so on hinge upon a single die result. Maybe a set or string of die result. If it goes really bad, yeah, then okay, then apparently it just wasn't that character's day. But if you have this situation where you're about to sneak in, grab the gold, whatever, and run out, and then you fail your stealth check, so the guard sees you and he just knows who you are, so you get killed, whatever, you lose. I hate those situations, because as a DM, I'm a firm believer in the fact that a DM should actually be the player's number one fan, or the player character's number one fan. Maybe not the players themselves, depends on the players, but you should definitely be a huge fan of the characters they play, because you're controlling the world, you're making things evolve and revolve, usually around the things that the players do, because that's where the attention is. But if you don't like the characters that your players have, the PCs as they're known, then it's going to be a really, really tough time for the group. So that piece of advice, actually, there's a role-playing system that I found interesting, but kind of sort of grew out of really quickly. But one reason I think that everyone, especially new DMs, should look at it if they have the time. AJ, I know you didn't have time for that. That's why I didn't suggest it to you. But that is it's called Vincent Barker. No, anyway, it's called Apocalypse World. And in Apocalypse World, the rule book, I think it's called Vincent D. Parker, or Barker. Yeah, Barker with a B. Anyway, in Apocalypse World, he actually has the usual blurb about how you DM the game, blah blah blah, how you run it, how you should, you know, do stuff, how you should run things, and he's got sort of a style for controlling NPCs and factions and all that by assigning motives to things like landmarks. This town that the players are in, the characters are in, that town actually has its own motives. And I really like that kind of looking at it, because then you're not going into necessarily not necessarily going into all the details about the Thieves Guild and what they're doing, and the Merchants Guild, and the mayor is opposed to this and that, blah blah blah. Because as a whole, this up-and-coming trading town actually has a purpose. It has something it wants. It wants to grow. And how can it grow? It can grow obviously through expansion, but expansion is kind of sort of a fuzzy term. So you can expand economically, physically, all those things. So you say this is a trading town. It should expand, you know, trade-wise. And you may not know all the details. You don't plugging in all the trading houses of the city, but you just decide that it grows, its influence grows over time. So it's got some interesting ideas in that. But he's also got this this section in his rule book about how to be, I don't know if it's called how to be a good DM or whatever, but basically how new players, you know, advice for new game masters about how they should treat their players, how they should approach the game and all that. And he actually does write the fact, and from him I have the term, or the idea that the DM should be the players or the character's biggest fan. That's the wording he's using, and I've picked that one up. I've always found that it's more enjoyable to be a player. So I knew these things before reading them in his book. I just hadn't, you know, put words to them as specifically as he has. And I think it was a really good summary of how to do these things and make a world come to life and make it more fun to players, for players. So yeah, so I suggest, you know, picking that up. You can get the PDF for a few dollars at various places, and just reading those things. He also has another bit of advice, which is that you should, as a DM or game master, whatever he uses, I think he uses a different term like storyteller or something, but it's irrelevant. As the games master, you should always look at everything through a sniper scope. And why should you do that? Because no matter what, at some point, whatever you're doing, the players are either going to mess it up, or they're going to defeat it, or whatever. And I've seen, and definitely also done so myself, I've seen game masters make the classic mistake. Author's name and title, I think he's called Vincent D. Barker, and the game is called Apocalypse World. So Apocalypse World is the setting. If you search for that, you'll get that and a lot of spin-offs, and you'll find out the author's name. I'm sorry I can't remember, and I'm too lazy to look it up, at least right now. But yeah, but it just has so many, a really good section that sort of summarizes this, and you're looking through everything looking at everything through a sniper scope. It's a good way of summarizing it. because I've done the huge mistake in the past of designing the boss monster or boss character, if it's an NPC, whatever it is, the final thing that the players need to defeat. That's an awesome thing. Just let's have at it. So yeah, and what happens? The players either get lucky or worse, they get a good idea for killing it. They actually look up that trolls are, I was about to say allergic, but what's the opposite of immune? I'm a little lost here. They get harmed by fire. Let's assume that it's not common knowledge, but they actually look it up and figure it out, and then they just go up to the huge troll you've got lined up, and you've got all the battle plans ready because you love your new battle maps and all those things. Highly susceptible or weak against fire, whatever. You get the meaning. And then they just go and basically just insta-kill it. Then what I've done, which was a huge mistake in the past, was that I would then give it more hit points, or maybe it wasn't actually weak against to fire. Maybe it just because I wanted it to survive. I've been looking forward to this fight. I've been looking forward to this huge battle. Or let's say that it's a bad guy. One of the people from one of the trading houses is actually a spy for the evil opposition type faction or country or whatever. And the players, they finally come to him, and all the dialogue by heart. You know what he's going to tell them. He's going to give them clues for whatever they can go to next and all those things. And what do? Just kill him. Or worse, just ignore him. I've also had that happen. And then as a DM, it took me a long time, a lot of years before I learned this. Also because this was before the age of YouTube and videos, and a lot of this wasn't even with access to the internet. Really, back in the 90s. Started playing back in the 80s, and you would have some articles in like Dragon Magazine, Dungeon Magazine from really old times, and yeah. So some of us had to learn the hard way. But again, what I would do then is I would give the troll extra hit points, or effectively make the merchant invincible. I'd make him immortal, because they had the drop on him. By any standards whatsoever, that guy is dead. But I couldn't allow him to die, because I had plans for him. I had stuff he should do. So what did I do? I made the huge mistake of trying to keep these things alive longer than they should have. And that's a mistake. And that is why you should always see everything through a sniper scope, because it's going to not necessarily die, but get beaten, overcome, whatever. You cannot expect this huge monster or the evil mage or whatever you use, however appropriate it is to your setting and all that. You cannot play the game as if it is the most important thing in the world and it cannot die because you need it for your plot. It's going to break the suspension of disbelief. It's going to give your players a really bad experience. You want to again be the player character's biggest fan, because if you are that, then it doesn't really matter if it's this troll or something else. If you want more battles, more fighting, throw something else at it. Have the troll's spouse come home, whatever. You can do that. Just don't do the other thing. So end of moral lesson for today, I think, at least for now. What do we need of this dude? We need obviously his hair. I'm gonna wait a little bit with that. We also need we need the skull. Now for the skull, I'm basically not gonna paint the skull. It's just gonna be left white, and then we can shade it and maybe give it a little bit of highlight. Then I need to figure out what to do with the bit in the middle. The hair should have yellow hair. It's gonna get yellow hair. because I need to go through yellow. Yeah, if I actually give him the yellow hair, or maybe I should make all of this yellow as well. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Oh, it's gonna be the worst color scheme ever. I love it. Now I'm quite curious about, again, as I said, I've been shaking up the paints quite vigorously with the thingy. So I'm really curious about especially the yellows, because yellow is always giving me a hard time. But this actually looks like it has a really good viscosity, consistency. No, not consistency, that's a different, it is called that, and that's a Danish word that I'm switching to English. It doesn't matter. Again, I am not going all the way down to milk, because I cannot make myself do that. Sorry guys, you know, professional type people who are actually watching this, I cannot make myself go down to the consistency of milk. I just can't. This actually flows quite nicely. So yeah. That being said, this does actually need to be thinned down more, which is, this is a new experience to me, guys. Having to thin down yellow paint more is unprecedented. So yeah, I really think, you know, shaking the paint is good. So I would recommend people who are painting, you know, pick up a really good paint shaker. It can be yourself if you have the arms and wrists for it. I tend to get not RSI as such, at least I think not, when doing it, but I do get my wrist starts to hurt a bit if when I do the whole, I'm gonna shake all my paints before painting. So yeah, so there is that. So yellow, what's this coming on? Oh yeah. I'm sorry about the camera actually picking up my hand most of the time. It's difficult to get the angles right, since I also have the big lamp with the magnifying glass that I'm seeing through. So that is cool. So yeah, oh right, in addition to a few changes to my setup here that caused me to be a little bit late, I was also a little bit worn out because today at work, since we're again having more restrictions due to the pandemic, I decided to do a small stream for my coworkers. So I just came off a almost 2.5 hour long stream on doing video games, and then went straight on to a stream about painting miniatures. So once I'm done with this, I'll have been streaming for 4.5 hours today. Then if you add in a very pleasant half-hour interview with some people designing an app who needed some input on it's an app for board game people to, you know, get in touch with other board gamers. So I've been on some kind of stream-ish, you know, webcam meetings for a total of about 6 hours or so today. The other stream went quite well. I don't know, Bill, if you or, you know, the other people listening remember the old tilt mazes, where you have like a small wooden box thingy where you have a maze, and then you have a marble or steel ball just running around in the maze, and then you have the knobs on the side for tilting tilting the maze, and then you have to guide it, you know, prevent it from going down the holes and get it to the end, that kind of thing. So anyway, we more or less did that. while slowly talking about how to do all the different things and blah blah blah. That always takes a little longer when explaining, but in the end we actually had something that was fairly workable and fairly playable. Didn't do the full maze because that was a lot of manual work at the moment. We didn't want to do a full scale level importer, so that would probably be a lot faster. Instead we just typed it in manually, which is it's a good place to start. But yeah, no, but it was fun. Only 2 people watching, despite 6 or 7 people signing up for it, and another 6 or 8 or so actually saying that they might join. And it's not that I did it to actually do the game development part. It's more just to give people a reminder that they have co-workers, and even if they're working from home and never really see them, well, I don't know. It's the whole kind of social get-together thing I try to get going. That kind of fell flat, so don't know if I want to spend time on it again. I mean, it was fun to hang out with the 2 people who did show up. Cool people, good software developers. Always fun to talk to them, especially because they're different kind of people all over. But these people are the kinds who will just happily go, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." The brilliant people, they don't know anything about this, but I could teach them a little bit, and then they just joined and took it from there. That's really cool. So now, doesn't that look horrible? So we're going to just quickly go through his hair, and then I think, since I'll be ending the stream in about 20 minutes or so, I should actually be able to shade this down as well. I've left his plates on his legs. I've intentionally not painted them yet because I want to actually want to try and avoid shading them and then do metal color on it. I didn't want to paint them all the way black because I want to have a little color play, see if I can bring that through. Whereas the weapons, I want to do them a little bit more detailed, so I just painted that black. And it sure is yellow. Yeah, but once it gets shaded, Bill, you'll see that the yellow will turn into sort of a brownish, orangey thing, hopefully. And we'll just take it from there. Now, if I hadn't actually been 20-25 minutes late on the stream because my computer decided to crash again, well, actually no, it didn't crash, it just hung on me. That was really annoying. So if it hadn't done that, I would have started at 7, and I might actually have been able to get a lot more. Well, obviously I would have had 20 minutes more, but I almost have been able to finish this in a single setting. But since I won't be done with the miniature and the base and all that, I'm just gonna have to finish him up on Sunday. And this might be a good place to remind all you kind folks that if you want a chance to win the painting, the Army Painter starter set, as I said, I didn't really want to I'll show it again what you'll get. I don't actually want to hang on to it because I've got all my Vallejo, I don't know how to pronounce it, I should look it up. I have those lines of paint, and I've got all the ones I need. But for this, we're using this starter set that you can see here. If you want, just let me know in the comments, follow my channel, and you'll be eligible for winning this set. Once I've done the miniature this Sunday, I will draw amongst the people who've signed up, and one of you will get both the paint set and the wet palette, and I'll figure out how to send it to you somehow. So let me know in the chat. And you can get these 9 colors, including 1 metal color and the strong tone quick shade. You'll get the pen, the brush. It's called a pencil. in Danish, but it's not a pencil, it is a brush. And you won't get the miniature, I'm keeping that for myself. But you'll get the wet palette, you'll get the paint, and you'll get the brush. Just, as we used to say in the Eve days, X up in chat. So, now, let's see if the paint has actually dried. Almost done. Mini penciling. Yeah, well, you can actually get pencils, you know, English pencils with various weathering effects like rust or grime or stuff like that, that you then just sort of smudge onto the miniatures. I've never tried them, so I don't really know the process for it, but it seems like a kind of cool idea. So, but now for the fun part. Now remember, take a good look at this miniature. I mean, it's painted. You'd be able to use it. It's better than unpainted. So anything would cost an arm and leg to ship to Canada from Denmark. You are absolutely right. I actually talked to AJ about it earlier, and I kind of think it would be a lot easier to just buy it locally and have it shipped to you. But I'm sticking to it because I love doing giveaways, so I'll figure out some way of making it happen if you win. Mind you, it will be a completely random draw, of course, because I'm fair. But I didn't win any of your dice in the giveaways you've done. So I just feel like I need to point out that will absolutely, of course, not factor in to who will win. This one here. Okay, so see, now we started working with the strong tone quick shade, and I probably shouldn't have used it unthinned for the yellow hair, but hey, he's gonna have an interesting hairdo. And if anyone is sitting out there and going, oh man, that hair looks really bad, you are more than welcome to pop by and have a chat with this dude about how his hair is not looking good. And Bill is happy that Ashley won. It's the first time a person from our Discord won. That is absolutely true. Well, I don't know if it's true the first time we won. I'll take your word for it. But it's so cool. I love it when people win. It doesn't have to be me. It just have to be someone, because it's a nice thing to do. So anyway, moving on with the quick shader. Army Painter, the company who's done these paints, actually got I'm gonna say infamous from being some of the first who started. I'm gonna choose my words carefully here because other people had done the same effect before them. But they were some of the ones who were the first to market sort of a lacquer or varnish with paint in it, not a clear varnish, for miniatures painters, wholesale, and doing the dipping technique, as it was called, where you would dip the entire miniature in a large paint can with this sort of varnish-y substance, and would then seep into all the recesses like this here is doing, but dipping the entire miniature and just in the same color wash, and then taking the miniature and just flipping it or flinging it really quickly, so you would fling off any excess paint or lacquer, varnish, whatever. They were some of the first ones to do that, and had a nice chat with one of the people who were among the first people to show up to Warhammer tournaments with armies painted like that. And they got a lot of harsh words for the way they had painted it, because technically they lived up to the standards you need to be able to enter the tournaments. You need something about, you need 3 different colors on your miniatures, all of it needs to be painted, blah blah blah. I'm not a competitive player, so I don't know those rules. But simply, having to paint 200 skeletons or a bazillion whatevers is just tedious. You don't want to paint your rank and file troops, but you want them to be painted. So they came up with this idea of using this stuff, dipping the miniature in it, and then just holding on with a pair of tongs and just flinging it as hard as you can to get the excess off, and then the entire miniature would get, it would look very nitty gritty, like he's beginning to as well here, this guy. But it was shade, and then just maybe a quick dry brush or a little bit of layering on top of it, highlighting, and they were done. And it took a lot less time because it was only one go, and you just, if you started with bright colors, you could actually get some really, really good results by just going with a very bright base coat and then just dipping it, flinging it, and you're done. And they could, you know, paint miniatures in a matter of minutes instead of, well, I've been working on this for an hour and a half, but then again, as I always say, I am not a fast miniature painter. I have fun doing it, though. So they really, really upped their game, and it was tabletop ready quality. But some people got furious and started accusing them of cheating, and that is not how you paint, and that's not proper painting, and blah blah blah. And it's always fun when people become purists all of a sudden and tend to forget that they're using rattle cans to prime their own miniatures, or they're using an airbrush, or they're using normal shades instead of, you know, mixing their own. If you really want to be purist about painting, you should only have a handful of things. I'm guessing 6 things, actually only 5. You should only have white and black as the colors, and then the 3 prime colors. I'm gonna cheat and go for red, yellow, and blue. I just looked at my color wheel. I couldn't remember. So just gonna have those 3 colors, black and white, and then you're gonna use water to thin it all down. And there you go. That is your limit. That, if you're really a purist, those are the only things you're allowed to use. Instead of buying, you know, 10 different shades of green or 8 different shades of red, and, you know, all those things that people have in their toolbox. And it's always, you know, people need to cheat to remind myself, yeah, primary colors. Exactly. I mean, I should know them by now. I was just got a little confused because this paint set have I can't catch the yellow one. They have these 3 and the yellow. So technically, if you only went for these 3 here, you could just mix up the green. But yeah, I am not even gonna try to do that. I may do a little bit of color mixing when I need to do highlights on this dude, but not yet. So anyway, yeah, so they got a lot of flag on that, but basically these days it's kind of the way a lot of people paint their armies, and maybe they don't use the dipping technique, which is, I shit you not, it is messy. You do not want to do that in your living room. It will get this, it'll splatter all over. But if you do something like that, it's gonna go really fast. And even, you know, not using the dipping technique, you can do what I do here. Maybe get a larger brush to make it go even quicker. And you're gonna actually get a very usable result in a really short time. Now I didn't take a still photo of this guy, but I did hold him up to the camera, so maybe I can get a good frame, you know, as comparison to, you know, before and after. Because just doing these quick shades in a generic color, I mean, I'm not going for anything specific for the red and a different tone for the green and the blue and the boots that are supposed to be sort of yellow, leathery brown. I'm using the same tone of shade for all of it, just taking the entire miniature from top down, just splashing it on, nice thick coat, maybe just, you know, cleaning up just a little bit as I go along, to avoid, you know, too large pools here and there. But generally, as long as the pools are in the right place, I actually want them to be big, because I wanted to emphasize, I was just about to say I wanted to highlight the shadows. but no. I don't want to highlight the shadows. So you see it's pooled a lot here on the red. So what I generally just do, just rinse off my brush, and just with a dryish brush, just let it go in there. Just wipe it off on paper towel, whatever you use. So yeah, darkening up the yellow really does make a difference, Bill writes, and it does. I mean, you can see again in his hair, it looked really horrible when I put it on first, but now it's beginning to look really nice. And again, his flesh is still wet, so it's still glistening a little bit, but you can see his muscles a lot better. Oh, hey AJ, thank you. Are you done with work? I'm guessing you should be in a few minutes. So, coming to the last bits of the shade here, to see how it goes. And now, for many purposes, I mean, if he was just one guy in an army, or one of many similar miniatures in a board game, or whatever, I would probably stop more or less around now. I mean, obviously do the plates down here, but I mean this one, doing the base as well. Did anyone see that huge white skull that I completely missed? That skull needs a little bit of TLC in the form of shade. So this is why I left the skull white, because even though the shade mainly goes into the the recesses, it also gives kind of a shine to the entire area that's shaded. So that gives the skull its slightly murky. Let's see if we can get a good shot of it. It's still glistening. Yeah. So Bill, you have to run to make some phone calls. Cool. Oh, you have to come in the auto shop again? So cool. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. I don't really have a lot more time today. But basically, we're beginning to get there. I can't sit here any longer. Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, well, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you for stopping by. I will just do, before ending for today, I will just do the metal bits as well. Some people will say, oh, you shouldn't put your metal stuff on your wet palette because it's gonna soak into the sponge and all that. I don't really care, to be honest. Oh, sitting for 8 hours while working. Well, that's kind of how my work day goes as well. I see. I do have one challenge here though, because I would really like to dry brush the metal on, but I also really don't want to destroy the only brush that's in the paint set. So I think I'm actually gonna paint this, and then I'm gonna shade it as well. My plan was to dry brush it, but that's gonna wreak havoc on the brush. So instead, I'm just gonna quickly do the sword and the axe and the small knob here at the end, and it's gonna be time for a little bit more shading, and then we're done for tonight. Yeah, see you Bill, see you AJ. I look forward to hearing your next installment of the Incorrigible Party, and to see you both crash into a lot of asteroids in Space Citizen, Star Citizen. Here we go. also in a little bit, when I'm done with this, will not take long, I think we'll go to see if one of my good friends, Emma, is active. She's streaming all weekdays throughout December, at least until Christmas, and she's always playing games or having fun. She's a cool person. So when I'm done with this here, we will go check out her channel. Just need the axe here. Now again, as I've said many times, and I'll say it again often, I am not a fast miniature painter. I'm in awe of people who can paint a miniature like this in about 15 minutes. And as you can see from the way I'm painting it, I just simply cannot physically move my brush quick enough to do that. And just the time it takes me to apply the metal color here to the axe should be more than enough to show you that I will never ever be able to cover a miniature like this in different colored paints in 15 minutes. So I don't know how these guys do it. I've tried looking at it and I don't get it. I mean, I can see, they're doing the brush strokes. It just goes a lot faster, like they're covering more ground every time they're doing a paint stroke. It's like they're painting half the miniature. So I guess there's something for me to work on. But on the other side, on the other hand, I'm happy with the way I do it now. So getting there. Now I know that I'm painting the entire axe and the handle and all that in the silvery color here, metal color. That is actually on purpose, because instead of trying again to try to speed up my paint job a little bit, I'm just over painting, and then I will fix it up by applying some brown tones other than the shade to the parts that I feel should be the handle. That means that I only have to do precision work once. So now again, with the evaluation of the kit, I have to say that I do like the brush. Now I talked about covering half the miniature in one stroke. You don't do that with this brush because it is fairly small, but it's still large enough to actually hold paint and paint the miniature. So it's not like you're doing a 000 or even finer brush. Oh, I need to do the plates down here. So that is good. I really like that. I'm still glad I decided to give myself the option of using the 000 brush, even though I haven't used it yet. Because I have a feeling that when it gets to the when I get to his face, I will need it. Just gonna quickly touch up the plates here on his legs, and once that is done, I'm actually gonna give them, I think I am gonna be mean to the brush and give it a quick dry brush in the center to keep it nice and dark. So go for a really dark metal tone. So let's quickly just do that. Cannot do that with a too wet brush. That's why it's called dry brushing. You usually dry brush with a dry brush with a little bit of paint And let's see if we can just get that in there. It's still gonna get as not really dry brushing, but again, it's gonna get a little bit of metallic effect into these plates without being fully visible as you know, as painted metallic. And then when it gets shaded down a little bit, that should be good. So there you have it. Now some highlights and fixing up a little bit, some details on the face, and I think it's gonna be, well, it's gonna be a painted model. Let's just leave it at that. But for now, I will bring you all on a small raid to see how Emma is doing. And I hope you've had a wonderful time. I hope you've enjoyed looking at, I think his name was Arnulf. But thank you for tonight. If you hang around, you'll be able to see a friend of mine play games or chat, whatever she's up to today. A good snowman is hard to build is the name of her stream. So let's see how many people we actually drag in. Until next time, remember to have fun, keep your paints wet, and as always, keep painting.
Disable until sunrise. Thank you. I told TJ I'll be tired. That I was gonna get super scared easily, and my buddy will just be like, I don't have time for your. Yeah, same. Mark, Choo Choo, thank you so much for those bits. Let me do another train for you.